You know, sometimes as leaders, we can lie to ourselves too much. And we imagine that lying is now a currency. You know the way you can just lie to yourself, and you lie to yourself, this is white. And you write it as white. We recently had the Kenya Pipeline IPO. Kenya Pipeline IPO was a flop. By the time the IPO was to be closed, it was less than 5% subscribed. So the government extended by a few days. In those few days, Kenya begged Uganda, MUSEVENI, to come and put in money. That was not market-driven. But MUSEVENI, because he's experienced and he's looking for the welfare of Ugandans more than our leaders are looking after the welfare of Kenyans, MUSEVENI gave two solid conditions. One, that he be given 2 board members, but number 2, that he holds veto power on appointment of CEO of Kenya Pipeline. And the Kenya government granted MUSEVENI and Uganda that request. So Ugandans didn't buy KPC shares. Ugandans were buying control of Kenya Pipeline because of the nature of their being landlocked and the need for fuel. The second thing, and I said it last week on Wednesday, and anyone who would want to challenge me, they can come with their evidence, and I'll come with my evidence. The IPO subscription by the closure was below 5%. Ugandans came with 21, they bought 21%. This other one, you are seeing the government reporting yesterday, that there is a 41% percentage bought by local companies. These are not local companies. These are government-affiliated companies. It is becoming a very bad trend. But the number 1 trustee of NSSF are not the trustees we know, but the phone calls they are receiving from high offices. And I want to tell NSSF, anything you cannot do with your own money, do not put workers' money in suboptimal investments. The CEO of NSSF and the trustees, I contribute to NSSF because my salary is cut. If you cannot invest your own money in the Kenya Pipeline, do not put my money into that suboptimal investment. Because now we want to turn NSSF into a wallet of big offices. When they want to float a board, they know there is workers' money, put there. They put in money for Talanta board. Workers kept quiet. They have been putting in money for these suboptimal decisions that the government is floating to them, which the commercial side of our economy is not taking. And they are receptive. I want to request NSSF and the superannuation fund. You Kenyans who are sitting in those offices, where you cannot put your money, it is not right to put workers' money in those areas. So the 41% the government is purporting that this is Kenyan companies, it is NSSF, it is superannuation fund, it is Kenya Re, KCB were being ensnared. I hope they refused, and some other companies with only one rider, all being controlled by government. So you cannot come and tell Kenyans and lie to Kenyans. We had an IPO which was 1 of 5 oversubscribed. It is the phone calls that were made on Tuesday afternoon by you yourself who know yourself. You called the CEOs of these banks, instructing them to invest workers' money. And if I am wrong, let them come with minutes of the directors' meetings passing those investments, because there is none. And they want to meet and backdate. Kenya Insurance Company, there are other 40% Kenyans who own Kenya Re shares. You cannot continue to be dancing on the tunes of the political actors. It's either you run Kenya Re as a commercial entity, or then you fold it to become a pure parastatal, and then you run it through phone calls. NSSF. If you want to run NSSF through the whims of politics, then the trustees put in your money in there, wachana na pesa ya wafanyikazi kuwekeza pahali kama hiyo. It is very wrong in a market where we have already done our math here. This hall is full of CPAs. That you have seen the P ratio of a company of 22. There is a P ratio of a company at 5, another one at below 2, and then some people take in workers because hawana peni ya pesa ya workers. Na wamepigiwa simu, wanapeleka mabilioni ya workers, pahali ambapo pesa haitarudi. If Kenya's money, the workers, ever miss to get their resources from NSSF, they will blame the phone calls that were made on Tuesday afternoon to the CEO of NSSF, to the CEO of Superannuation Fund, to the CEO of Kenya Re, and to the CEO of the other entities, which you are going to see when the real results of KPC are out, and which will show specific companies. It is not right. Tunakuja tunasipia wa Kenya, 105 of a subscription, who happy, iko happy. The money we are purporting is actually also not being paid, has not been paid. NSSF, we are only forced to give an undertaking. Even Superannuation Fund, there is no money that has hit the accounts of the receiving banks. It is commitments. Because there was no IPO. Don't tell Kenyans there was an IPO of Kenya Pipeline. This was a private placement. Only 2% of Kenyans bought the shares. Because they knew there was political interference even in pricing. The transaction advisor of this transaction is not the company that you saw. It is the phone call. They were told the last day. They were to price Kenya Pipeline at a different price. Wakapigiwa simu. Wakaambiwa jaribuni hii 163. Now we are running our capital markets through whims. That now, tunaona sasa political actors. We have now powers to dictate even what happens in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Let us get ourselves off the market. Because the NSC is the platform of capital flow. If we put in politics into the valuation of companies, into investments, especially of workers' resources, it will be wrong. And if it's money they wanted, you don't need to force a company like Kenya Re to buy. Kenya Re has already 41 billion Kenya shillings in cash and cash equivalent. And the government holds 60% of the company. You would have just told Kenya Re to pay a special dividend, and you get your money as government without necessarily forcing Kenya Re, which is 40 owned by ordinary, normal, innocent Kenyans, to invest into a sham. The last thing, unaona vile kunaenda Iran. Now the oil prices, you are seeing how they are going. But there is something I've been talking about every day until people think I have nothing else to talk about. That thing is called securitization. Securitization was an illegal borrowing that was done by government. And now we have the budget policy statement. They don't even know how to account it in the books of government. They are trying to account for it as a revenue. They are trying to account for it as what? It is betraying them because it is a debt which they don't want to admit. Unfortunately, Kenyans will soon hear some choruses from government. Because they want to raise fuel prices, they will now start blaming Iran and Middle East. And I give you 2 months, you'll see that happening in Kenya. Below 2 months, you'll hear EPRA raising the fuel prices in a manner that is higher than the global oil prices trades. But this is the thing. In 2022, oil per barrel was hovering around $100 per barrel. Even after going up as of today, the crude oil prices, they are trading at around 76, and Brent, which is called sweet oil, is trading at around $82 per barrel, which is lower than what President Uhuru Kenyatta left. The global oil prices are lower now today by over 30% of what Uhuru left. But oil prices in Kenya has not gone down commensurate. Why? Because the government introduced an 8% VAT on fuel, which was not there. And in 2024, just after the protests, the government introduced a 7% levy on fuel. They actually waited for when the oil prices were to go down, wakaweka levy at 7 shillings, which was signed by the then minister. It actually never came to parliament. It was just a gazette notice. And therefore,